completing day 6 of WesBoss's JavaScript 30. Today's activity is to create a type ahead feature. It starts with a list of cities and states. When I type into this search bar, I will filter through that list and any of the matching places will appear down below. As well, the matching characters are going to highlight what you see in the search bar. So you got Denver, where I spent a few years at, Orlando, born and raised, and then New York, where you can find me today. The cool thing about today's activity is everything takes place in JavaScript. So there is CSS and there is HTML, but the important things to highlight with the CSS and HTML all occur within the JavaScript. So the first thing I had to do was get the list of cities, which I do using fetch, accessing this endpoint up here, and then I convert the response that it sends back into JSON, and I'll push that data into my cities array. And with this cities array, I'm going to use some array methods and two functions that I have written below. So I've gotten my list of cities. Then I need to grab the DOM elements. I'm going to get the input tag with the class of search and an unordered list with the class of suggestions. To my search input, to my input with the class of search, I'm going to add two event listeners, change and key up. Using them together is what will allow the list of matches to appear as the user is typing. So when the event listener is triggered, it's going to invoke this display matches function. Let's take a look at what display matches does. Well, the first thing it's going to do is get an array of matching places. So we'll go ahead and call this matches array. And to get that array, we're going to invoke find matches. And we're going to pass it two values. We're going to pass it the value from the input tag, what you typed in the search bar, and we're going to pass it an array for find matches to iterate through. So what does find matches do? Well, it takes a search term and it takes an array. It'll filter through that array and then essentially look for any places within that array that matches the search term. And I have converted that search term to regex. So now I have a list of matches. Well, what am I going to do with those matches? Well, I'm going to take information from those matches and convert them into HTML that eventually I'm going to append to the unordered list suggestions. So let's call this variable HTML. And to get the HTML that I'm going to append, I'm going to use .map. Now, before I write the HTML, I want to add the class of HL, which stands for highlighter, and that is what's going to highlight the matching characters. So let's again use regex. And regex is important because when I use .match and in a second when I use .replace, it needs to take a string, but instead of hard coding in a string, I'm going to let regex create that string for me. So new regex, regular expression, except this time I'm not passing it the search term per se, I'm going to pass it this .value. And again, we'll use GI for global and insensitive. And I'm going to do the same thing twice, once for city and once for state. So city name is going to equal place.city.replace. And we're going to pass this replace method two arguments. We're going to pass it regex, which is the string that it will replace. And then I'm going to pass it a new string that first string will be replaced with. And that new string, all it's going to do is contain this new class called highlighter. And that gives it that cool highlighter yellow color. And what will that be? That's going to be this .value. And we'll kill the span. I'm going to go ahead and copy and paste that because I'm going to use the same exact logic, but for the state. We'll call this state name. We'll call this city place.city.state. Perfect. So now if a search term is either in the city or the state, whatever matching terms exist will have this highlighter on there. Oh, we need to go ahead and close this out, otherwise my code's going to break. Perfect. And so now I can write the HTML that I want to append to the DOM. And since we're adding to an unordered list, we're going to add a list item, span with a class of name. And the values I'm going to provide are this city name and state name. We're almost done here. I just have to do 2 more things. Close out the LI. So map is going to return an array, but I can't display an array to the DOM. So I'm going to turn that array into a big string using the join method. And the last thing I have to do is take this string which I've created and append it to the unordered list suggestions. So I'm going to take the variable that I created for suggestions and change the inner HTML to the HTML that I have here. And that takes you through today's exercise. Thank you.